Hi, I'm Christopher Johnson, Senior .NET Developer Advocate at Split. Today I'm going to show you how to create an injectable service in ASP.NET Core using test-driven development. Split offers a service for feature flags that allows for experimentation and deployment of new features in production. It has features such as canary releases, guardrails, and kill switches to manage features and gather data. So after we open Visual Studio, we'll create a new project. We want an ASP.NET Core web app. I'm going to name mine something simple like Injectable Service with TDD. And I'm using 5.0, but you could use 3.1 or 2.1. It won't make much of a difference here. And uncheck configure for HTTPS because we won't need that. And as soon as this new project is created, we're going to go up to the solution and we're going to go to new project. We're going to add a class library. And we're going to call that the same as our solution, but .common. And that's where all of our shared code will be. Make sure it's the same target framework you selected earlier. And directly after that, we're going to create yet another new project. Same as before, only this will be .tests. Make sure it's the same target framework. Now then, we're going to delete class 1 because we won't be needing that. Dependencies, manage NuGet packages, browse, and I'm using NUnit. You can use whatever your favorite testing framework is. This just happens to be mine. And I'll need the test adapter. And I love that it suggests this. We'll both need Microsoft.NET Test.SDK. I'm going to install Fluid Assertions just because I really like the way it looks when you create and when you read tests, especially when I come back to a project 3 months later and have no idea what I did. So we'll close that, and we're going to go into common class. Actually, no, not class 1 yet. We're going to go to NuGet packages, and we're going to install split.io. So make sure it's this package because we've recently deprecated some of our older .NET SDKs. Then we'll go to class 1 and we'll rename that into split. Make sure Visual Studio actually renames the class name and not just the file name. We'll come into dependencies of tests. We'll add 2 project references. Then we'll create a new folder. We'll call that common. I like to mirror the actual solution in my test project. That being said, we'll add a new class for Split called Split Tests. All right. We will need NUnit, though I almost always click NuGet for some reason. Framework, Fluid Assertions, and we'll need to tell it that we're using the common namespace. I'll make this a public class, and we'll turn that public class into a test fixture. Then we'll start to write a new test. All right. So now we have a blank test and a blank class. So since I know how Split works, we're going to need an API key and the name of the treatment that we're going to use. So let's actually test to see if we can connect to Split. So here you might write something like Split connects, which really isn't all that descriptive. So what I like to do instead is Split can connect when given the correct API key. I really like this format just because it's much easier to read. Again, especially when I come back 3 months later and actually forget what I was doing. Or when you onboard someone new, they should have a good idea of what the tests are actually doing. So now you'll see me type SUT a lot. That stands for System Under Test. This is the thing we're actually testing. Say split. And now we've come to one of my favorite parts about test-driven development. You can actually shape the way you want your classes and models to look when you call them. So what we're going to say here is system under test dot SDK, which is the thing I want to pass around in my service, but the compiler has no earthly idea what I'm talking about. Should not be null. So here I can come over to SDK. I can click generate property, because if I don't, this will never compile. So it's just going to create a random object because it has no earthly idea what I need. So now we create that, and this is going to create a failing test, which is what you want when you're doing test-driven development. You want to start with a failing test and then increment until you have a passing one. So in case you can't find your Test Explorer, you can go to Test, click Test Explorer, and it should open up. I'll go down to our specific test, click Run, and we should see it fail rather quickly. All right, expected that not to be null, but it was null. So I'm going to click here and click F12 to just jump to the property. So this is just a random object that was never set. So of course it's null. What we're going to do is come up to using split IO, services, client, interfaces. And we're going to copy that line. And we need classes as well. So the first thing we're going to do is change this from an object to an iSplit client. Then we're going to remove the setter. And we're going to make a constructor. That way we can set this once and only in this class. So we're going to need new configuration options, a new factory, that factory will take in the API key, which we don't have right now, and the config. And we'll come down and we'll actually set the SDK to be factory.client. We'll create a try catch. We'll keep the basic exception. We'll say SDK block until ready. And we're going to set this to be 10,000 milliseconds. All right. We go back to our test now because, well, actually, what we need to do is come up here, say string API key. We'll actually have to inject this. There. Pardon me. Now we come back to tests, and it has no earthly idea how to compile because it doesn't have a string. Just get rid of that. Pardon me, folks. Now we'll come up to app settings in our web app. We'll say split API key. And we're going to say your key because I'm not going to show you mine. So enter your key here, and I'll see you in the test in just a moment as I enter my key. So now that we have the API key set in app settings, what you would normally do for a long-running project is come into your tests, click Add, existing item. We'll go back out to our web project, change the filter to all files, select app settings, and then you can add as a link. So this is really just a copy, and you want to set this to copy always. So what I'm going to do, since this is just an example, is we're going to create a new class. That class will be called API key. Make this public static, a public static string value, and again, I'm not going to show you my key, so I'll see you in the tests. So now I'll come up to here, go API key, value, and when I run this again, it passes. So I know what you're thinking. We actually set split to a value earlier. So of course it passed because it's not null. Well, that's not true. You see, when you give the SDK an incorrect key or a blank key, it's going to throw an exception. Hence why I have it in a try catch. So to show that, we're going to copy this test and be very careful when you copy any code. So we'll call this split and not connect when given the incorrect API key. So Fluid Assertions won't actually allow me to test this way. So what I'm going to do is come over here and change this to wrong key. And this is going to have to become an action. And what we can say is should throw, and we'll just say exception. So now come here and run our new test with the wrong API key. Technically, I should have made that fail first, but forgive me. It's going to take just a moment as it actually goes to connect to split. And you'll see it passed because it expects us to throw an exception. Now, a really cool thing with Fluid Assertions is you can actually drill down further into that. So what I'm going to do is copy this, and we'll say split cannot connect when given a blank API key. So we'll remove that. Now this will actually work. The really cool thing is I can come over here. And I'm going to grab this, throw exception with the specific message. API key should be set to initialize split SDK. Again, this really should be a failing test when we start, so I'm going to cut that out. That'll be blank as well. So when we run this, you'll see it fails, and there's our actual message. So we'll put this back in. This is a very cheeky way of making a test fail and pass. And it works. So now we know that we have our tests, or at least our golden path tests, surrounded for connection. So we know that it will connect when given a correct API key, won't connect with an incorrect key, and it won't connect with a blank key either. So now that we have that set up, we're going to close or minimize this and open Split. One of the great things about Split is that you have access to feature flags for free. You can actually get a 30-day account when you first sign up for experimentation and all the other features with data that we have. So we'll go to login, go to my account. First thing we want to do is create a segment. let's see, we want to name that, I'm going to name that injectable service with TDD segment. Original, I know. Type user, owners are the administrator of myself or whoever you want to add. We will create, I want to make a definition. I'm going to create a new user. I'm going to add that individually. And I'm going to name that user Sarah. Optional, comments optional, confirm. And now we have Sarah. We're going to run over to splits. We're going to create a new split. And I'll just call that injectable service with TDD underscore split. All right, select graphic type, user, create. Now I'm going to create a rule. This rule, we're going to do a targeting rule. If user is in segment, and we'll use our injectable service with TDD segment, serve on. Default rule is to serve off, and you can change these to other things besides on and off later. But we're going to keep that the default way today. Go to change summary, look at everything that we've done. Then I'll hit confirm, and there we go. So the next thing is to see that the treatment actually works. So, new test, public void, split, returns on, and user is in segment. Now what we need to do, I'm just going to go up here and grab this. And that's no longer our system under test. That's just now split. So our new system under test equals split dot, oops, SDK dot get treatment. And here we're going to need the domain key or the API key. I'm sorry, not the API key, the actual key that we're passing to split. This can be a username, timestamp, a GUID, anything. Just something unique that identifies the user or what's happening. So leave that blank for now. And the name of our treatment, I'll run back here and just hit the copy name button. We'll say Sarah because we know she's in the treatment. So now this should be a string that's on. And casing does matter here. So system under test should be on. But since we want failing tests first, we'll say off. I'm just going to hit run all. There we go. Expected to be off, but was on. Again, cheeky way of making this fail, I know. So now we're going to be even cheekier. We're going to come down and say split returns off. And this is going to be John. We expect John to not be in our segment because Sarah is the only person in the segment right now. So we run all of our tests again. They all pass. Now, what happens if we actually forget to send something over? Now, this I'm going to actually be doing live with you because I'm not sure either. So let's say that this is going to be probably going to throw an error. So split an error. Split throws an error when user when blank user is passed to treatment. All right. So I'm going to come up to here and we're going to grab, well, since we're actually expecting that to happen, we're going to grab a system under or action. And we'll say new split API key dot value. Have it. Just copy those. Throw them in. Pass nobody. Say system under test should throw an exception. All right, let's see what happens. Expected a system exception to be thrown, but no exception was thrown. I was wrong. Pause. Right. We come up here because the SDK is not actually going to throw an exception. What's going to happen is that we're going to pass it blank data, and it's going to basically say, I have no idea what you're talking about. And instead of giving us on or off, it's going to give us a third option called option. So, say system under test, and we'll change that to, well, no, it's split. Good thing I actually copied the correct thing. So what we'll do is come back here, remove that, split, copy, returns. It's either option or options. Let's say options. When user a blank use, let's see, split returns options when a blank user is passed to treatment. All right, let's give that a shot. Options, near con. Let's just take a look here. Oh, control was the correct word I'm looking for. Returns control. Now that's actually an expected behavior that happens within the SDK. I know, again, we're being a little cheeky, just grabbing the error and throwing it into the should be expected, but it's what's going to happen every time. So now, come in here and run. Expected control, but control. See, this is, and I'm preaching to myself here, where casing actually matters. And it's true, I could have done set this to ignore casing or this to be lower case, but live and learn. So now I run this, and all of our tests should pass. All right. So now what we're going to do that everything works the way we expect it to is come over to here and quick refactor. Nope. There we go. Wrong place. Right. We're going to extract the interface. So iSplit, common iSplit, new file, iSplit, and go. You'd normally want to make a folder for your interfaces, but we're running a bit long on time, so I'm just going to leave that the way it is. And now we have an interface. So we're going to come up to startup. Startup is going to need to be able to actually talk to common. I'll go ahead and preemptively add all services common. We'll come down to configure services. And let's see, services, add scoped. We'll say I split. Then we'll say split. Good. Then we'll say S for split. Close the new split. And then we will go configuration. And then it was split. API key. Save. This will go out to your configuration file and actually pull the value of split API key, which I'm not going to show you because that's my actual key. So now that we have that, we can go into pages. I'm going to go to the code behind an index. Now, the really cool part, if it actually had any idea what I was talking about, so we'll add common, say split, and now in this different project, within this code behind, we have access to everything in our split class from common, which is just beautiful. We don't have to worry about the setup or teardown. ASP.NET Core handles that for us. Later, if we ever change how this works, or if we completely change like the class for a different class, we can come to startup and just swap it out, as long as it implements this interface. So now we'll go back to the code behind. We'll say, I guess I will, well, no. I don't know why that's there. I always thought for the longest time the convention was not to use underscore anymore, so we're not going to use underscore. So we'll say split equals split. Should give us the option to make a new property. Generate a read-only property. So now we have that. I want to preemptively make a public bool called is active. This is just going to be field instead of a property. Technically, that could just be a field. It doesn't have to be a get. So now we'll say our result equals split dot SDK dot get treatment and username and the name of our feature. And just so I have that, name of our treatment, not our feature. We'll grab that. Now, I'm going to say Sarah. We know Sarah's in there. And again, this is just a generic example. So, if result is equal to on, go ahead and throw an else one here. We'll say is active equals true. Else It's already false by default, but just to show, I'm going to make it false there too. So now that that's there, we'll come into the actual web page. I'm going to remove this. Is, and we'll use razor for an if statement. I already messed up that. So if, and then tab. So if model dot is active equals true, and span say on. Actually, I'm just going to copy that. Oops. And we'll say off. So now if we run this, waiting, treatment's on, because we know that Sarah is in our segment. So what we can do now, replace Sarah with John, run it again. I'm pretty sure you know where this is going. The treatment's off. Now I know this is just a really simple example, but using injectable services in an application, especially a large application that sprawls, is just so powerful. Like this split service, for example, you can use this anywhere that has access to common. So you don't have to rewrite a lot of the actual code. Like for example, for the most part, you would write something like this every time you wanted to talk to split. Here what's going to happen is that since we added this as scoped, it's going to make a new instance for every request. So that way, you're basically just spinning up a new instance of this class every time you make a connection to split. A little more detailed or in-depth than that, but that's the simplistic explanation of what's happening there. So it's really a powerful feature that I would highly recommend everyone use. That's going to do it for me. I really hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Again, Split is an amazing product, and you can access all of the feature flag options for free. There's a great 30-day trial where we give you access to experimentation, data collection, all kinds of those amazing features I talked about at the beginning of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye.